Thank you for coming. I am very excited to kick off this interesting conversation that is part of the Americas Forward Forum, Global Americans. I'm Diego Area, the CEO of Global Americans. And I want to first take a moment to thank to all of you who came, who traveled from across the Americas to join these and more conversations. I really appreciate that. Means something. So many important, interesting, and insightful people in the same room, traveling to listen to these amazing people we're going to listen to. And we're in this building, the U.S. Capitol, intentionally. And the reason is we firmly believe that the future of the technology convergence between the U.S. and Latin America is definitely a business decision, but it's also, and most importantly, maybe, a policy decision. And we're here in a place where those decisions are being made every day. And the AI economy has a supply chain, as you all know, and Latin America sits at the center of it. It starts with minerals. Latin America holds the raw materials that the AI economy runs on: the copper, the lithium, the rare earths. No minerals, no chips, no AI. This morning, we were in a room with NVIDIA speaking about these topics as well. Then it needs energy. Paraguay, for example, doesn't have too many minerals, but it has Itaipu, one of the world's largest hydroelectric dams. And it converted cheap, competitive energy, clean energy, into data centers, nearshoring corridors, and investment under just 5 years. That's the second link. Then it needs to move. The Panama Canal moves goods, but data moves through something just as important: undersea cables. Those cables don't land by accident. Someone decides which countries and cities are going to become data centers. And whoever shapes those routes will shape the flow of information and the future of information in the region. Those decisions are being made right now as we speak. Then, definitely we need rules. Rule of law, contract enforcement, regulatory convergence and predictability. And lastly, we need infrastructure, cloud, data centers. That's what Oracle is building, that's what Google is deploying, and that's what CAF is and other multilaterals are financing in the region. And at the top, AI, the governance framework, the sovereign data, the bilateral agreements. But now, why does all these technicalities matter? For the United States, Latin America is not just a neighbor. The world is reordering itself. In that environment, having a hemisphere that is digitally integrated and aligned with US values and standards is not a nice to have, it's a strategic imperative. The people on this stage are building the answer, so I will quickly get out of your way so you can address these important issues. I will leave you with Amparo Mercader, whose career sits exactly at the intersection of everything we just talked about. Amparo spent 25 years at PwC as a partner advising governments and corporations across Latin America on tax investment frameworks and the conditions that make capital move. But most importantly, Amparo is the vice chair of the board of directors of Global Americans. So Amparo, I will leave this group with you. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you, Diego. That's very kind of you. And yes, it's an absolute honor to be part of Global Americans and to be here with you all today to talk about AI and digital infrastructure. And I have to say, I think this is a critically important question and point for Latin America in particular. So AI, when we talk about AI, we're talking, as Diego articulated, we're talking about construction jobs, we're talking about energy, we're talking about water, we're talking about submarine cables, and all the things that go into basically being able to process AI and the compute needs that the world is currently demanding, right? There's a massive need, and where is Latin America in this? This is really the railways of the 21st century. And so Latin America is at a point that it can be part of this revolution, get on the railways, or see it from outside. And we absolutely want Latin America to be a part of the global supply chains of this AI revolution. So a few points just to put in perspective how important, how massive this is. And we're here in Washington, D.C., and down the road, down 95, if you go towards Loudoun County, that's the biggest concentration in data centers in the world. Texas is trying to, but it's Loudoun County, right? It's right here, and you see it when you drive over to Dallas Airport. And as you can see, it's a number of things, and it has had tremendous contribution to the local economy. This is what we're talking about. How can we in Latin America and from the United States make sure that we are part of this? And one important statistic, so there's been different measures of the contribution to GDP. So when we think about AI infrastructure and information technology, it accounts for about 4% of gross domestic product. 4% doesn't seem like much. However, some estimates for 2025 put it at almost 90% of the growth of GDP being associated with this industry. That's the impact. 90% of the growth of the economy of the United States is associated with this industry. So it's absolutely imperative for Latin America to also be a part of this. And as Diego well articulated, it has so much to offer. So much to offer, both in terms of critical minerals, in terms of the ability to provide compute in a sustainable environment. So the hydroelectric, and we'll have Minister of Paraguay talk a little bit about that, but the ability to provide this computation in a sustainable way. These are all the opportunities. And so that's how we want to start our panel. So let me introduce this amazing group of people. We have the, I think, amazing, best people that we could have to have this conversation. So first, I'll introduce Alexandra Schaffin. She's head of trade policy and competition at Google, one of our largest hyperscalers in this context. We'll introduce Minister Marco Riquelme, Minister of Industry and Commerce of Paraguay. And then finally, to our left, we have Diogo Brunocchi, and Diogo is Senior Director for Government and for Latin America at Oracle, another massive player in this industry. So as you can see, we cross from private sector, government, and then I think later on, yeah, we have it all. Okay, so let me kick this off. I'd like to understand, and maybe we do like a quick sort of across the panel. Can you please start by saying what is necessary, what's required for Latin America to be able to get on this opportunity? So I'll start with you, Alex, and we'll go down the panel. I think it's already on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. I think that you started with a great question because there are so many factors that create the right environment for more investment in AI and infrastructure in Latin America. And I know at Google, we see so much opportunity in Latin America for more investment. I think if I have to choose between investment, infrastructure, governance, policy, it's probably going to always start with the right policy environment because I really see this as providing the architecture, the foundation to facilitate the other things. When you have the right policies in place that facilitate more investment, that make data flows easier, that help governments govern based on policies that attract more investment, that really makes the difference for which geographies, which jurisdictions attract more of this investment.
So before starting, thank you, Global Americans, for the opportunity to be here in this very special place with all of this audience. Being here, sitting in the middle of Oracle and Google, I feel a little bit richer than I was 5 minutes ago. So for me, it's great to share the panel with you guys as well. So this is not a decision that you make with a presidential decree. It's not something that you sign and we're ready, right? It's not a law or a decree. It's a decision that a country has to make that takes sometimes decades to be able to build the right infrastructure and the right capacities to be able to have these huge investments come to the country. Paraguay has been building that in the past decades, generating political stability, generating economical stability, and what this gives you is perspective to be able to invest with the ease of mind that the rules of the game are not going to change in the future. So the independence that we have today economically from the region, we don't depend on one specific country for commerce. In fact, we are one of the 12 countries that recognize Taiwan as an independent nation. And this has cost us maybe a diplomatic relationship with China, but it has given us a huge and very fruitful relationship with Taiwan, who today is positioned in the center of AI industrial revolution. So for us, all of the capacities of using energy to be able to set up data centers and these supercomputers and these very big substations has started with crypto mining. So a lot of people, crypto can be controversial, but for us, it has given the administration of energy of the country the possibility to have revenues for over $500 million a year just in selling energy, and taxes as well for more than, I think, $200 million in the past 5 or 6 years because of the tariffs of importing the computers for Bitcoin mining. But today what we are trying to do is this 1.3 gigawatt of energy that we have with crypto, we're trying to transition it into AI. So the basis is already there. The capacities to be able to build this infrastructure, it is a little bit different for AI, but the basis is already there. We have been doing it. There are companies who already work with these racks and cooling systems and plumbing and everything that has to do with having this big infrastructure. And also we have been taking out red supply from critical infrastructure for years now. So everything that has to do with communications and power grids, we don't have the red supply that maybe these hyperscalers need to be able to feel safe when they have to send the information to be processed inside another country and then come back as an AI service. So we have been building this for years now. We have been doing what we said that we would be doing. Today, Paraguay has 2 investment grades. It's the only country in Latin America after Uruguay and Chile that has 2 investment grades. So it's not just us that says this. It's the Moody's and Standards and Poor's, and we have these certifications internationally that we actually commit to something and we deliver. So today our biggest challenge is to do this, what I'm doing today. Come to these types of events, talk to these big players here and try to persuade them and convince them that Paraguay is a safe place to be able to home these big investments that they want to make.
So absolutely. So I think in terms of macroeconomic stability, of course, I'm a bit biased being from Uruguay, but I have to say Paraguay has done incredibly well, and in terms of being able to manage its inflation and achieve tremendous stability, and congratulations on the investment grade. So Diogo, I'd like to turn to you, and again, so what does Latin America need here and now? What would you think are the strategic areas to focus on?
Thank you, Amparo. And that's the challenge of being the last one to talk because they already said everything. But thank you for having me. Thank you for having Oracle position on this topic, which for us, of course, I will take part of the Alex position. Of course, continuity in public policy for attracting investment is really important. The way that the governments are behaving themselves by setting up a strategic goal to position this area specifically as one of the most important ones. You mentioned railways. Mm-hmm. I think AI is not only railways, but also the water, the electricity is so important for us, so important to grow. It's not a matter of the country that will decide, no, I'm not going to invest this. I will be only absorbing. I will only consume this. This will define the success or the failure of one country. I have to say that. And I think the region has realized that all countries want to be hubs of AI. They want to be protagonists in this sense. And I think the mood is good, because this is the way that you can compete in a good way, but also understand that you should consider create a huge coalition, because otherwise the region is not going to survive in a equal way. There's also a good opportunity for us, because we have a very young workforce that, as companies, I think we should be not only invited to invest, but together with governments to create some projects to reduce the skills gap and make sure that all the young guys that are moving to work in technology areas, or they want to use technology to improve their business, they can have at least the basics to start. So I think is one of the very important part is to invest in skills gap in this sense, and to provide the continent, to provide the region, the ability to reduce inequalities. That is so important for us. This is the way that we can bring a sustainable growth, and this is the way that I think sides from left, from right, they would perceive that this is not a matter of choosing how much priority you're going to put in this area, but this is a core. So I would have to say that for us, for Oracle, is something that we always be glad to talk. Now, after the event, we're going to talk to Paraguay for sure. But not only with Paraguay, but we do understand that there's a bunch of opportunities that we should consider, and not because it's a momentarily period, but we do think that all countries have one specific areas to grow, one specific industries to put some efforts to. So that's pretty much.
Fantastic. So as I think about like the panel, so I think, so Alex focused on the regulatory aspects, the infrastructure, and also the human capital. So as you can see, the challenges are really multidimensional. So let me maybe sort of try to unpack a little bit. And I'd like to understand, so as we think about data centers, so they're the physical side of the equation. So I'd like to start maybe with infrastructure, and Minister Riquelme, maybe I'd like to understand from you, as you're thinking about this infrastructure expansion. And so you mentioned, for example, getting the chips through borders. You mentioned energy. So specifically, like what does a government that is successful in attracting this investment, how are you looking? Is it like a one-stop shop to get all of this, or what exactly? And how can you facilitate that process to be part of this sort of AI boom?
So as public policy makers, we have to try to make a perfect balance in between what is foreign direct investment attraction. So that's discounting taxes and doing a lot of work to be able to bring these guys in, and what stays in for the government, or for the country. So what we don't want is 100% extractive industries. And this is mainly the reason why we don't have a relationship with China, because China is a very extractive country. So they tend to be companies that come in, use the resources, and leave, and want to pay very little taxes and corrupt people inside the countries. And this has happened all over Latin America. So today what we are trying to do is writing a very powerful incentive law, so that these companies feel that we have a benefit outside of what other countries have in the region. For example, Brazil has a very high tax to import the chips and semiconductors. It's over 60% tax. Now I think in Congress you have something going on to be able to lower this, but Lula has been very candid in saying we don't want data centers, right? He has said this publicly before. And what we say in Paraguay is we want to be top of mind in data centers when you speak about this globally, not only inside our country. And you're right, data centers have been driving the economy of various countries. The U.S., 90% of the growth comes from this investment. We were just in Taiwan with our president a few weeks ago. We had the honor to visit TSMC, go inside the production line, and it's amazing. Robots going all over the place. And Taiwan's economy has grown 8.5% last year. 2% organic growth, and the rest is all driven by semiconductors. So obviously something is going on. This is here to stay. The person from NVIDIA before said that this is not a race because there's no finish line, but there is a race for energy. And today Paraguay has a 2.5 gigawatt pocket of energy in one spot. And I think it's the only country in the world that can say this, plus clean and renewable energy. And obviously there is a race because energy is a limited resource. You can keep generating, but when you generate, it's not at the same price as energy that is from depreciated assets like our hydroelectric dams. So this framework that we are building to attract investment is going to also protect the future of AI, because some of the cities in the US as well, you ask the people from the cities about the AI that just invested there, and they don't want to know anything about it. They want them to leave. No more AI for our cities. So what we're trying to do to exclude this from happening is identify already the tax with what is going to resolve. So maybe 1% of the tax that we are charging the data centers is going to go to the food in the school system. So when they ask, hey, what is data centers doing for me? You say it's giving food to 2 million kids per day. Or having the data centers involved directly. We were talking with the House of Representatives here from Miami that it can work for serving Wi-Fi in all of the public schools, or 1 computer per kid, right? So you can have a lot of programs directly associated to the tax that you take from the data center infrastructure that comes into the country. So then the data centers have a name where it's the benefit in the country, and you can directly associate this to them. And it's very different, this from the data center tax to go into a pool of money that then gets distributed in the public annual expenditures. So this is kind of what we're doing to be able to associate these things. And also what you said, Diogo, building capacities is fundamental. And I'm gonna talk about something that is not well known because it just happened 3 weeks ago. Paraguay signed an agreement to make a company with Taiwan. So today we have 2 companies that are binational in Paraguay. One is with Brazil, with Itaipu. We share a dam, 50-50. And we have another one that is with Argentina, that it's Yacyretá. We share another dam with them. So the river that crosses Brazil and Paraguay, and the one that crosses Argentina and Paraguay. And today we still sell 50% of the energy that we produce to Brazil. So this is sold at a very discounted price, high volumes of energy. Because of the treaty that we have, this works this way. So now what we're going to do is, with this company that is 50% Paraguay, 50% Taiwan, we're going to build a gigawatt data center. So we are going to be able to traduce this energy that is a commodity into a really high technical product, which is a data center. So it's going to produce services for the world. And Paraguay has a deal that is landlocked. So generally, logistics is an issue for us. It's more expensive to get a container from Paraguay to the U.S. than it is from Brazil or Argentina to the U.S. So these types of services don't need borders. With connectivity, you can do it if you're landlocked, or you can do it if you have a coast. And what we have been doing with the capacity of the people is that one of the negotiations we had with Taiwan is for them to build a university in Paraguay. And we signed an agreement with them almost 10 years ago. They automatically started with a university that is half the time in Paraguay, half the time in Taiwan. Taiwan in Paraguay is all Taiwanese professors. And in October of next year, we're inaugurating a huge campus that is Paraguay-Taiwan Polytechnic University. And we are building the resources to be able to manage the infrastructure and also to use the infrastructure as data processing. So we are printing out 500 very technical engineers every year that can serve this ecosystem and use this ecosystem as well as a powerhouse for future program developers from Paraguay.
So I have to say this is absolutely impressive. So the ability to, as you said, so convert water into a much higher, and energy into a much higher per square foot, per gigawatt of AI compute. So the value add, if you think about it from an economic standpoint, the value add, the impact to the GDP economy in terms of the revolution that's happening and being able to be a part of that. So amazing. So I want to turn and we'll go back to some of the questions, because you really touched on some critical questions of what is it in it for me. So for as you know, data centers are coming next door, what's the impact for the community? So you touched on a lot of that, and we'll come back to that. But before, I wanted to go, Alex, you mentioned if I had to start somewhere, and maybe it's your legal background, but you said it starts with the regulations, it starts with the rule of law. And this was also mentioned by other panelists. So if you could please articulate, like, what, in your opinion, like, what is a good legal framework for countries? And if you can maybe comment across the region what you see and what you recommend happen.
Thank you. I think a good place to start is a place the minister mentioned, and that's tax policy. I think that companies like ours are looking for long-term predictability and reliability for big investments. You see that in regions where, for instance, we have facilitated subsea cables or data centers. These are very capital-intensive investments that take a lot of predictability and a good regulatory environment to facilitate and sustain over time. I think in addition to that, it's very important to have things like cross-border data flows and not provide very stringent data localization measures, because that allows AI products to reach these different countries, to provide the best, latest and greatest products that we can offer, and also continue to improve. It also facilitates really strong cybersecurity measures. So for example, Google offers a product where we actually encrypt data on your device or browser before it goes to our cloud. And the whole purpose of this is that nor third parties can have access to your data. And so we like to think of this in terms of open sovereignty, because I know sovereignty is talked about a lot in context of maybe protecting borders or creating very stringent digital walls. But we actually see sovereignty and these open environments is going hand in hand to facilitate more digital investments and stronger digital economies. There's also provisions like we see in some of the more recent agreements, like the agreements on reciprocal trade between the U.S. and El Salvador, Guatemala, and others that prohibit tech transfers. So requiring access to source code or algorithms as a requirement for market access. This also exists in USMCA with Mexico. These are really important provisions that help companies know that their IP, their technology are going to be protected and utilized in productive ways in these different geographies. So those are just some of the things that are very important. And I would also add, I cannot forget AI framework. Having risk-based AI frameworks that are really grounded in the risks that have been identified and not having overly broad, very stringent policies are really integral to attracting this type of investment. And this is because we know that when things are overly broad or constrained investment, then those economies don't get the most advanced technologies, because the very broad regulation prevents a lot of these things from being implemented. It also creates a lot of compliance issues with trying to modify products in order to comply across different jurisdictions instead of there having regional frameworks that are harmonized to some extent. So I think that that's also very important and something that we're seeing more in different countries as they consider what is my AI framework and what do I want to attract in terms of investment and technologies in my region.
Thank you, Alex. And actually, I may ask you a couple of questions, if you can expand on a bit more. So it's been talked about the importance of having a digital agreement for across the hemisphere. And of course, in Latin America, and this is about convergence. This is about coming together. You're sitting here in Washington. So I'd love to get your thoughts in terms of how can, from a regulatory perspective, from a partnership agreement perspective, what can be done to ensure the friendship, if you may, across the hemisphere translates into safe, trustworthy, ability to send information and opportunities?
That's a great question. I think that what we see is, and referring to some of the more recent agreements again, building blocks for things that certain agreements have and others don't, but when combined can really ladder up to create a very comprehensive digital framework agreement. And we're seeing this in other jurisdictions as well. And I think some of the elements I already mentioned are really important and important to include. So that, of course, starts with having the ability to have free cross-border data flows, to continue the e-commerce moratorium and not have taxes on that. Also to not cause forced technology transfer in order to facilitate these products in different regions. Also, not having digital service taxes so that you're targeting certain products and maybe excluding others. Other discriminatory taxes that could target certain companies and not others. I think that all of these things, when combined, really create what could be sort of the next level of, if we want to take USMCA, which was generally considered the gold standard of digital trade and still is, but even add to that and say, okay, 6 years later, there's a lot of technology that's evolved since then, and so what additional things do we need to include to improve upon it? I think going back to the risk-based, flexible AI framework, it's really important to consider this because the hardest thing I think for any industry is if they have to navigate asymmetric regulation across many different geographies. And so appreciating that every country has their own interest and priorities, if there was a way, and I know this has been discussed in certain international fora, for there to be some sort of standard, maybe regional AI framework agreement that incorporates a lot of these best practices, including on the cybersecurity front, that would really go a long way in attracting not only investment, but access to products and making sure that countries have the most leading technologies in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Alex. And it's something that at Global Americans has been a priority for us to try to foster. So we definitely believe in the importance of setting those regulatory relationships and agreements, and rather than sort of that spaghetti bowl of like a one-on-one bilateral agreements, looking at across the hemisphere. Diogo, I'd like to come back to you. So I'd like to understand from your perspective. So you're sitting in Brazil, at one of the largest hyperscalers. I'd like to understand how you're thinking about both from the perspective of the different data centers. You have a number of data centers across the region, how you're thinking across that. And then also you brought this question of, from a capacity perspective and skill building. So how do you, like, in terms of the services that you provide, are you finding the right skill level? And if we say are competing with other regions around the world, how do you think Brazil, the region as a whole, is positioned? So I know I asked a lot of questions, but I'd love to kind of be for one day in your shoes in Sao Paulo at Oracle. Tell us about that.
Thank you. And I will add some comments additionally to the questions that you did. Been running these topics for the region and also getting some inputs from other geographies. My impression, and I will add a topic that will come to the context, that I think AI is bringing something new. Governments are somehow becoming different because they have to be able to deliver entrepreneur state. And what I mean by this, government have to find new ways to partner to bring value to the citizen. I've been in touch with some, not only on the federal level, but also on the state level, some governments that are perceiving the opportunity and bringing value by managing the capacity of not only enabling this ecosystem, but also being able to profit on this. Selling capacity of data processing is something new for private-public partnership that I think Latin America is trying to deploy now, and governments are understanding that they have this power, this ability to bring this industry and also to lead this industry and to do something more. So I wanted to touch base on this. And how do you do that? Why do you do that? This brings more resources for the government itself to spend in some other areas, some other kind of investments. And the moment that you bring competitiveness between governments and also provide a better service with less value, you also have money to spend in some other areas. I think it's something that not everybody are perceiving, that I think government is somehow reshaping themselves and providing a new way to be more accurate by really being able to taking care of their citizens. And based on this, I think the most challenging moment right now is to find, of course, people to do that. We're not only struggling with each other on countries to reduce or to provide more incentives to attract this industry, but also how can we make sure that we're doing the same kind of project that Paraguay did by creating this brain mass to work on this. Companies like Oracle, what we're doing is providing this kind of training with certification in order not only to attract, but also to incentivize people to elect one of the tracks for work, being cybersecurity, being working in the cloud, being working with AI. And this is not only Oracle. I think the good part of this, everybody is working together with all the companies, because this is not a matter for one company to cope with. Nobody's going to take care of the one company is not able to do it all. So the whole ecosystem would welcome not only interoperable approach, but also the ability to provide the most diverse, because data are also very interoperable. So that's pretty much the perception that I have. Regardless of ideology, I think governments have to continue the way that they're doing, and attracting and also being able to partner with private sector to also empower this link between the position that is open, what is required, and how can not only the government but also together with companies can work together and make it work by providing the update, the skilling, and everything else.
So Diogo, I'd like to sort of when it comes to data center, I think of it almost like project finance, and in that I mean, you want to ensure certain costs, certain energy, certain water, different sort of components. Are you expecting to sort of sign your energy agreements, your water agreements? Like what sort of stability, like frameworks are you looking for to be a little bit more specific as you're entering into data center, or if you're basically choosing sort of compute, sort of leasing arrangements instead. But if you're looking for actually establishing the data center, what's sort of that partnership with the government that you mentioned?
I think the most important one is the government will be the enabler, not only to provide the conditions for the company to be in the country, but also to be part of this investment as a partner. The government being a partner will allow us, for instance, to process the data that the government itself has, the need that the government has, to transform this into revenue. So for the government, it's way cheaper to use this technology and to also make sure to deliver this to the market than to making sure that we can, how can I say that? It's way easier to do that if you have the government as a partner in this sense, because this will allow not only a business case, but also someone that has interest for this project not to stop.
So I'm getting signs that I need to start wrapping up, but I asked the best questions that came to mind. But if the audience here, do we have time for just a few? We don't have time for a few questions. So I don't know if there's anything. Hopefully we touched on. Obviously, there's no way we could have covered everything associated with this incredible opportunity that Latin America is facing. There's no way we could have covered everything. But I hoped we touched on enough areas to get us thinking about where we can support this. So I'd like to do just like one last sort of across the panel. What's the one thing, so 1 minute or less, like what's the one thing that you would want governments and also companies to be doing right now to embrace this partnership of AI throughout the hemisphere? So I'll start with you, Alex.
Okay, I'll try to go quick. I think the number one thing that comes to mind is consultation, frequent consultation between governments and industry as governments come up with their AI agendas, their frameworks, because a lot of times these are done quickly or with not as much consultation as companies would like. And we really can weigh in on what's worked and what hasn't and how to bring economic benefits to different countries.
So for us, just a two-point perspective. One from what Diogo was talking about. We have to talk more in between Latin American or regional South American countries. There's room for everybody. AI demand is doubling every year. So today, for example, Brazil, 50% of their AI demand is sourced from Brazil, and the other 50% is sourced from Virginia. So we have a huge opportunity to build capacity, even for the regional demand, not even looking into the U.S. yet. So baby steps start with at least something. The first one is the most difficult one. And then the second one is maybe easier, and then the third one comes by itself. And something about what Alex was saying, it's a huge challenge for us as policymakers to understand, because this is a whole different language. It's not talking about the same thing that we have been talking about for 20, 30 years. It's something that we have to learn. What is AI? You know, that's the first question. Is it just ChatGPT or Gemini? Or is it much more than that? And really, when you start looking into it, AI can solve the medical industry in rural areas. So it can bring really solutions for third world countries that if we embrace them, it can change the reality in the lives of the people. But because it's so challenging to be able to speak with the takers and with the countries, and it's something very new, it would be great if the U.S., as the leading country in what is AI, can write down a set of recommendations or maybe treaty where countries can adhere to it, instead of every country trying to figure out what to do to be able to attract these industries. So maybe not tax-wise, maybe everybody decides what to do tax-wise, but in what is intellectual property or what is data privacy or other things, it would be great that the U.S. as the mirroring country can write these recommendations down, and we can take these to be able to insert them in the laws that we are writing to be able to attract these industries.
The AI frameworks, absolutely. Diogo, go ahead.
My last words will be in a way that we should consider focus hemispheric digital pact. I think this way we can also minimize the impact from the polarized politics that we have in the region. And thinking about a mid to long-term actions, I think we should pursue this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diogo, Minister Riquelme, Alexandra, and Amparo for this interesting conversation. I want to recognize Representative Susie Lee from Nevada, who is joining us today. We also have Representative Joaquin Castro joining us today, who will address the room. So please receive him with a round of applause.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad I had a chance to hear some of the important conversation on the panel. I'm Joaquin Castro and very proud to represent my hometown of San Antonio, Texas, here in the U.S. House of Representatives. And also, I want to say thank you for the invitation to speak with you all today. I have served for, I guess, going on 14 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, mostly on two committees, on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And so I'm the ranking member. Democrats are in the minority, so I'm the ranking member on the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee. And then also for about the last 10 years, I've also served on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. So in both of those committees, I've discussed artificial intelligence and its future quite a bit. And right now, as you all know, we're at a very pivotal point. In many ways, artificial intelligence is a nascent technology around the world, but it's also developing very quickly. American companies and companies across the world are investing hundreds of billions of dollars into AI models, data, energy production, chips, and data centers. These are powerful technologies that hold immense potential and significant risks if we implement them without care or careful thought. The actions our country takes on technology, innovation, and AI will shape the future of our global standing, national security, and democratic resilience for decades to come. I say that about our country, the United States of America, but I also mean it for other nations of the world, including those in Latin America. For the United States as a nation, we have incredible advantages, from world-class universities to global talent. I believe much of that talent is not only in the United States, but also in the Western Hemisphere. But we cannot compete alone. To innovate and grow in AI, we must partner and support partners who want to be part of this new chapter in our world's history. Latin America has so much dynamism and so much potential. It's a vibrant region with strong democratic traditions and a well-educated workforce. In fact, our hemisphere is blessed with natural resources that are literally the envy of the world. Everything from abundant energy reserves to gold, copper, and the critical minerals needed to manufacture advanced technologies like semiconductors or EV batteries. I know in my discussions with leaders, businesses, and the people of Latin America that there's deep interest in working more closely with the United States to leverage the strength of the hemisphere. Let me be clear about one thing. Latin America's resources belong to the people of Latin America and the respective nations. The energy, the minerals, the data, these belong to our neighbors, and they should be developed for the benefit of the people of those nations and hopefully of our region. And that means they have every right to be careful, deliberate, and judicious about how those resources are used and who they partner with. I also want to say this. The same debates we're having here in the United States about the responsible use of AI are happening in the vibrant societies of Latin America as well. How do we protect privacy? How do we guard against bias and surveillance? How do we make sure this technology serves people rather than the other way around? These are American questions that we're grappling with daily in this new era, but they are also questions for Latin America and the rest of the world, with debates playing out from Tamaulipas in Mexico, the Tierra del Fuego in Chile, and Argentina. Too often, we in the United States assume that we have all the answers and our neighbors have all the problems, and we need to be open to hearing from them and working with them. And finally, I want to talk about something that I think doesn't get enough conversation. We hear a great deal about advanced semiconductors and chips and critical minerals and about energy. And yes, those are in fact essential, as you all know. You cannot build advanced AI, in fact, without them. But data is also essential. Data is the raw material of artificial intelligence. And like any other natural resource, it has enormous value. The difference is that data is generated, in this case, by people, by our movements, our voices, our health, our families, our daily lives. It is deeply personal to each and every one of us. So countries in our hemisphere need to be thoughtful about how and under what circumstances they allow companies, whether domestic or foreign, to access and use their data. The question every nation should ask is simple. Does this arrangement serve our people, protect their rights, and strengthen our nation? Or does it simply extract value and send it somewhere else? The United States should be the partner that respects those questions. So I want to say thank you, Diego, for hosting this conversation and for inviting me to speak. Godspeed to all of you and your incredible work. Thank you so much.
Thank you all again for coming here to this interesting conversation. We have had a very intense day, from critical minerals and raw materials to AI, data, etc. We're going to be using this information to inform our work in the future, so I'm excited to be here and make you part of the next chapter of Global Americans. And just as AI runs on energy, infrastructure, and logistics, our work runs on partners. So I want to acknowledge and thank CAF. I want to acknowledge CAVEX, the Cámara Venezolana de Empresarios en el Exterior, and Opportunitas Advisors, and others, multiple supporters of our work. I also, and none of this happens without the work of our talented and hardworking team, Kelsey, Mariano, Alexandra, all the interns, all the team. Thank you for making this possible, and thank you again for coming.